Okay, let's do a check-in on the clvrngs, a 1867 novel written in 1864 by Anthony Trollope, one of his standalone Lonely Trollops. This is a part of my Lonely Trollop read-along with, not with, but kind of around Steve Donohue's read-along of standalone Anthony Trollope novels. He's picking novels, and I'm reading them and then just giving my reaction here because I'm just obsessive that way, and I still want to do it even if I don't do it more formally in public. Um, so yes, this is going from chapter 11, Sir Hugh and his brother Archie, to Doodles in Mount Street, and yes, I guess you can refer back to my other check-ins with this if you want to get more detailed plot synopsis. Let's just try and hit some points and get the hell out of here. So yes, Harry Clavering, who was in love with Julia, but Julia jilted him. She went off and married dissipated Lord. I think it's a Lord. Dissipated Lord. But he died. But in the process, but in that year that he died, she became a bit more kind of disgraced and muddied and dirtied, possibly through her dissipated husband's machinations. Was rejected by her loving brother-in-law, Hugh Clavering, um, and so, but and in the meantime, Harry got engaged to his employer. He decided to go off and become an engineer, and he got engaged to his youngest daughter, Florence. And so he's engaged to Florence, but Julia's back, and he's like, oh, and he's really hanging around Julia a lot, and he's like, he hasn't told Julia that he's gotten engaged, and is he going to do something stupid? And yes, he ends up doing something stupid and caressing her, basically pulling her to him, telling her he loves him, is prevented from doing anything more because Sophie Pateroff, the sister of Count Pateroff, who was apparently the man that her former husband used to kind of disgrace Julia, is sniffing around. Both of them are sniffing around. Sophia bursts in on them and kind of prevents him from doing anything too much more stupid. And indeed, throughout all this, it does come to light to Julia that, hey, Harry is engaged to another woman, and she's just like, I don't want anything to do with you. You get out. Kind of, were you going to tell me this? You have anything to tell me? It's like, and it's like, I'm sorry, kind of that kind of thing. And he goes off quite disgraced, but you can tell that they still have the hots for each other. Um, there's some very comedic stuff because Hugh Clavering, he's like, oh well, she's her husband's dead, let's marry her off, and he's got his younger brother Archie. It's like, Archie, go marry her. It's like, and Julia has made it kind of clear. It's like, why would anyone want to marry Archie? Even if I was kind of like completely disgraced, I wouldn't even consider him, whatsoever. And he's like, he gets the advice of his friend Doodles, Poodles, who's Doodles, this kind of, rider like a horse, she's a trained mare, and you got to put the spurs into her, let her know who's there, kind of thing. Not actually translating that into actual, what you would actually, how you would use that on an actual female. And he completely fails at his first attempt. Then he goes to Sophia, who's the her quote friend, the person who's kind of hung around her at least, and tries to buy her because he thinks she's a Russian spy, and tries to use bribe her to get thing. But he uses like 20 pounds, and it's just like, you're gonna need a lot more money than that, buddy. Come back with 50 more. And she's like, I'll just milk him for his money, but it's like, I'm not gonna do anything and with all this stuff. And yeah, it's very comedic in that sense. And then with Trollope, you get some really kind of desolate. It's literally, the desolation I think is the title of the chapter, where Hugh Clavering, and that is kind of unfeeling asshole who's at the front of the company, company, the family, who throws his weight around, who's really just kind of no feelings or whatever. He and his wife Hermione lose their little son Hugh Jr. Uh, and he's sickly. He's been sick. Hugh is like, yeah, whatever, take care of him. He's gone off and he dies, and she's left there alone as her little son has died. And much to her credit, Miss Clavering, of the of the uncle of Hugh, who is a priest, does come over. They're neighbors. She comes over to kind of lend support, lend comfort, and Hermione is just like, she is so bereft. She does love her little son, but also she's afraid of, like, her husband is going to blame her for this. And her husband isn't going to be pissed that his son has died. He's going to be pissed that he's lost his heir, the thing that's important to him, the continuation of himself. It's all about him. Uh, and Miss Clavering from next door is like, well, I'm here to help you. And she's like, you're only here to help me because you're my close neighbor. If you weren't a close neighbor, you wouldn't be here. And Miss Clavering doesn't have much to say about that, because it's true. And you really feel the painful kind of loneliness that this woman has. You can see, in some ways, you can start to sympathize, because earlier in the novel, Hermione tried to get Julia to maybe consider Archie, because not because she thinks it would be good for Julia, but she's so desperate to have somebody who's actually a friend, someone who actually loves her near her. And you can kind of find a sympathy for that, even though it's kind of a drowning woman kind of grasping at somebody else, and kind of probably would pull them down as well. And indeed, Hugh comes home, and he is such that kind of like selfish guy that he can't even really accept when people give him condolences or try and kind of offer religion to him. It's like, that's all bullshit. It's like, I don't care. And he's there a very short amount of time, and then he leaves again, leaving Hermione alone. And it's really her you feel sorry for. And he's definitely more, it's like, well, we're going to get Archie. And he's like, Archie should marry this Julia too. And it's like, yeah, he's going to have everything if I die. And you can tell that it really pisses him off. And kind of as a counterpoint, you do have Florence Burton and her brother and her father and mother, who are just such a decent family. Like, they've heard, like, what the heck is happening with Harry. Like, we've heard the news that he is sniffing around this other woman, Julia, this kind of disgraced woman. So we know that, something is up. And, like, they don't, like, attack him. And indeed, when the brother comes to him, he's like a really decent guy to him. And he's like the best people. And Harry's kind of thought he's above them. He's referred to the brother as like the man who dusted his boots with his handkerchief, but he realizes, like, oh, this is a really decent guy. And it's like, it's one of these things, like, when you marry a woman, you marry the family. And it's like, there is a sense of, like, if you married this family, you would be on solid ground. You would have the really decent people around you to support you and to help you. And he's got his own kind of selfishness of, like, that, or even it's just like a selfishness of, this is my first love. So it's a good setup there. I think Steve talked about, Florence is sort of a milksop character, but I think when you combine her with just the decency of her family and how well Trollope captures that, he does make a good argument for, no, this is something that's worthy. And while Julia is also a really interesting character on her own, and someone who wants to be kind of hold herself up with pride, even though she's been disgraced. It's a good pairing. So I'm really enjoying this. I'm really enjoying the novel so far. Okay, that's all I got for now.